Imagine being 14 years old. Today you would probably be sitting in a classroom talking with friends, playing games, or thinking about your future. In the Middle Ages, a boy your age might already be carrying a sword. He might be marching across unfamiliar lands beside hardened soldiers, and there was a very real chance he would never return home. For thousands of medieval boys, childhood ended long before adulthood began. Some returned from war with scars that would remain for the rest of their lives. Others came home missing fingers, arms, or legs. Many carried memories that haunted them long after the fighting ended, and countless others never returned at all. Imagine a small medieval village. Months ago, several boys left together with a local lord's army. They were excited, nervous, and eager to prove themselves. Now only a few have come back. One limps through the village gate. Another bears a deep scar across his face. A third never arrived. His family only received the news weeks later. For medieval families, scenes like this were not unusual. War was a constant part of life throughout much of medieval Europe. Kings fought kings, lords fought neighboring lords, territories changed hands, castles were besieged, armies marched year after year. And while history often focuses on famous knights and powerful rulers, many of the people caught in these conflicts were surprisingly young. Some boys began preparing for military life before reaching their teenage years. Others accompanied armies as servants, pages, or squires. Many found themselves dangerously close to battle long before they were fully grown. To modern eyes, this seems shocking. Today, we generally think of 14-year-olds as children. In the medieval world, expectations were very different. A boy of 14 might already be considered capable of serious responsibilities. He could work long hours, he could travel alone, and under certain circumstances he could find himself surrounded by war. Not every medieval boy became a soldier. Most never became famous knights. Many spent their lives farming, working trades, or helping their families survive. But for those connected to noble households, military service often shaped the course of their lives. The path toward war usually began years before a boy ever saw a battlefield, long before the first sword was drawn, long before the first arrow flew, and long before he truly understood the dangers waiting ahead. To understand why so many young boys found themselves involved in war, we must begin where their military journey often started, inside the castles of medieval Europe. For many noble boys, military life began long before they ever touched a real weapon. The journey often started around the age of 7. At an age when modern children are just beginning elementary school, a medieval boy from a noble family might be sent away from home to serve in another lord's castle. This was considered an honor. It was also the first step toward becoming a knight. These young boys were known as pages. Life as a page was not glamorous. The stories told in movies often focus on heroic battles and shining armor, but the reality was far more ordinary. Pages spent much of their time learning discipline, obedience, and service. They carried messages, they served food, they helped organize halls before feasts, they assisted older nobles whenever they were needed. Every task was considered part of their education. The goal was not simply to teach practical skills, it was to shape character. A future knight was expected to be loyal, disciplined, and respectful. Castle life provided constant opportunities to learn these qualities. Pages also received instruction in reading, religion, etiquette, and courtly behavior. Not every boy learned to read fluently, but many noble children received some form of education. The church played an important role in this process. Religious instruction was considered essential. Boys learned prayers, attended services, and were taught the values expected of Christian warriors. Physical training gradually became more important as they grew older. Pages practiced riding horses. They learned balance and coordination. They played games designed to build strength and agility. Some trained with wooden swords. Others practiced wrestling or mock combat. These activities helped prepare them for future military responsibilities. Life inside a medieval castle could be exciting. Pages witnessed feasts, tournaments, ceremonies, and visits from important nobles. They heard stories of famous knights and legendary battles. Many dreamed of earning glory for themselves one day. Yet castle life could also be demanding. Discipline was strict. Mistakes often brought punishment. Homesickness was common. Many boys spent years away from their families. Some adapted quickly. Others struggled with the separation. Despite these challenges, the page years served an important purpose. By living among experienced warriors and noble households, boys gradually learned the expectations placed upon them. They observed how knights behaved. They learned how castles functioned. They began to understand the responsibilities that awaited them. As the years passed, their duties increased. Their training became more serious. And eventually, around the age of 14, many boys entered the next stage of their military education. They became squires. And for some, real war was now much closer than ever before. By the age of 14, many noble boys had already spent years learning the routines of castle life. They were no longer pages, now they became squires. This was one of the most important transitions in a young warrior's life. A squire occupied a strange position. He was not yet a knight, but he was no longer treated as a child. His responsibilities increased dramatically. For the first time, he was trusted with duties that directly supported experienced warriors. Many squires were assigned to serve a specific knight. This relationship could last for years. The young squire followed his knight almost everywhere. He helped maintain armor, he cared for horses, he cleaned weapons, he carried equipment during journeys, and most importantly, he observed everything, every conversation, every decision, every lesson. The knight became both teacher and example. Through daily service, squires learned skills that books could never teach. They learned how to remain calm under pressure. They learned how to judge people. They learned when to fight and when to retreat. For many boys, this period was both exciting and exhausting. The work could be physically demanding. A full suit of armor was heavy. War horses required constant attention. Travel often involved long days on rough roads and uncomfortable conditions. Yet most squires accepted these hardships willingly. They dreamed of earning their own spurs and becoming knights one day. Training also became more serious. Wooden practice weapons were gradually replaced with heavier equipment. Squires practiced sword fighting. They trained with spears. They learned mounted combat. Archery, wrestling, and physical conditioning remained important parts of daily life. Mistakes could be painful. Training accidents were common. Bruises, broken fingers, and injuries were accepted as part of learning. The medieval world offered few shortcuts. A future warrior had to earn his skills through experience, and sometimes that experience arrived sooner than expected. Although squires were still very young, many accompanied military campaigns. They traveled with armies, they helped organize camps, they carried messages, they transported weapons and supplies. Officially, their role was supportive, but battlefields rarely respected official roles. When fighting began, chaos often followed. A frightened 14-year-old might suddenly find himself surrounded by screaming soldiers, flying arrows, charging horses, and deadly confusion. No amount of training could fully prepare someone for that moment. The first campaign was often the most terrifying experience of a young squire's life. Many remembered it forever. Some discovered courage they never knew they possessed. Others learned how fragile life could be. For the first time, war stopped being a story told beside a fireplace. It became reality. And reality was far more dangerous than anything they had imagined. Nothing could truly prepare a 14-year-old boy for his first battle. Training grounds were controlled. Practice weapons were predictable. Even tournaments followed rules. A battlefield was different. It was loud, confusing, terrifying. And once the fighting began, events could spiral out of control within minutes. The morning of a battle often started in silence. Soldiers woke before sunrise. Armor was tightened, weapons were checked, prayers were spoken. Many warriors understood that they might not survive the day. Even experienced veterans felt fear. For a young squire experiencing battle for the first time, that fear could be overwhelming. As armies formed their lines, tension spread through the ranks. Men waited, sometimes for hours. No one knew exactly when the fighting would begin. The anticipation itself could be exhausting. Then came the sound, the beating of drums, the blast of horns, the shouting of commanders, thousands of voices rising across the field. And suddenly the waiting was over. One of the greatest dangers came before soldiers even reached each other. Arrows. A medieval arrow could travel with incredible speed and force. Archers filled the sky with deadly volleys. To a young boy standing in formation, it may have looked as if the sky itself had turned against him. Arrows struck shields, armor, horses, and sometimes people. Many soldiers never reached hand-to-hand combat. The battle found them first. Once the lines collided, chaos followed. Historical movies often portray battles as organized duels. Real medieval warfare was far messier. Dust filled the air. Men pushed against each other. Visibility disappeared. Commands became impossible to hear. A soldier often had little understanding of what was happening beyond a few feet around him. Survival depended on staying calm. Unfortunately, panic spread quickly. A frightened horse could crash through friendly soldiers. A collapsing formation could expose hundreds of men to attack. One mistake could trigger disaster. For young squires, these moments were especially dangerous. Although they were not always expected to fight directly, battlefields rarely respected such distinctions. If their knight fell, they might be forced to defend him. If enemy soldiers broke through, they might have no choice but to fight. Some boys displayed remarkable courage, others froze in terror. Most experienced both emotions at different moments. The reality of combat shattered many childhood illusions. War was not glorious. It was not heroic speeches and shining armor. It was confusion, fear, exhaustion, pain, and survival. And for countless young boys across medieval Europe, the first battle marked the moment they stopped feeling like children forever. For many medieval soldiers, surviving the battle itself was only the beginning. The fighting might end in a single afternoon. The consequences could last a lifetime. A young warrior who escaped the battlefield without serious injuries was considered fortunate. Many were not so lucky. Medieval weapons were designed to cause devastating damage. Swords could slash through exposed flesh, axes shattered bones, spears pierced armor and muscle, arrows left deep wounds that were difficult to treat. Even minor injuries could become dangerous. Modern medicine did not exist. There were no antibiotics, no disinfectants, no emergency rooms. A wound that would be treated successfully today could become fatal within days. Infection was one of the greatest killers of medieval warfare. Many soldiers survived the fighting only to die afterward from sickness. A cut that initially seemed harmless could become swollen, painful, and deadly. Medieval healers possessed practical experience in herbal remedies, but they lacked an understanding of bacteria and infection. They did the best they could with the knowledge available to them. Sometimes treatment worked, often it did not. For young squires experiencing war for the first time, these realities were shocking. Many had grown up hearing stories about brave knights winning glorious victories. Few stories focused on the suffering that followed. The groans of wounded men, the smell of blood, the long nights spent waiting to discover whether a friend would survive. Battlefields remained dangerous even after the fighting stopped. Looters moved among the dead and wounded. Enemy soldiers searched for prisoners. Horses wandered through the chaos. Fires sometimes spread across the field. Confusion continued long after the final charge. Captured soldiers faced uncertain futures. Wealthy knights might eventually be ransomed. Ordinary soldiers often received no such opportunity. Some spent years in captivity. Others never returned home. For boys who survived, war changed how they viewed the world. The excitement that had existed before the campaign often disappeared. Reality replaced fantasy. They had seen death. They had seen suffering. They had learned how quickly life could end. Many carried those memories forever. Yet, despite everything, armies continued to march. New campaigns began, new wars erupted, and new generations of boys followed the same path, some hoping for glory, others simply following duty. Few truly understood the price they might be forced to pay, because on a medieval battlefield, survival was never guaranteed. Not during the battle, and certainly not after it. Not every boy who marched away to war returned home. For medieval families, this was one of the harsh realities of life. A son could leave with an army in the spring and simply never be seen again. Sometimes the family received news, often they did not. Communication in the medieval world was slow and unreliable. A village might wait weeks or even months to learn the outcome of a distant campaign. For parents, the uncertainty could be agonizing. Many never discovered exactly what happened. Perhaps their son died during battle. Perhaps he succumbed to disease. Perhaps he was captured and taken far from home. The truth often disappeared with him. Even when armies achieved victory, casualties could be severe. Popular stories tend to focus on successful commanders and heroic warriors. Historical reality was much darker. Every battle left grieving families behind. Every campaign created widows, orphans, and parents who would never see their children again. Young squires faced particularly dangerous circumstances. They often found themselves close to combat without possessing the experience of veteran soldiers. Some were killed while protecting the knights they served. Others died from wounds that might have been survivable with modern medicine. Many names have been lost to history. Their stories were never recorded, yet they formed a significant part of medieval warfare. Most soldiers never became famous, most never appeared in chronicles. They lived ordinary lives and died ordinary deaths, but their absence was deeply felt by the people who knew them. A missing son meant an empty place at the family table. A missing brother meant additional responsibilities for those who remained. A missing heir could change the future of an entire household. War did not simply affect battlefields. It affected villages, farms, workshops, and families. Its consequences spread far beyond the fighting itself. And for every boy who returned home, there were others whose journey ended far from the place where it began. The medieval world remembered victories. Families remembered losses. And sometimes those losses lasted for generations. For the boys who survived, war often changed everything. The person who returned home was rarely the same person who had left. Months earlier, many had marched away filled with excitement. They dreamed of adventure. They imagined glory. They hoped to prove themselves. What they discovered was far more complicated. War forced young people to grow up quickly. A 14-year-old who witnessed battle had seen things that many adults never experienced. He had watched friends fall. He had faced fear that could not be escaped. He had learned how fragile life truly was. Some survivors eventually became knights. Years of service, training, and experience allowed them to rise through medieval society. They earned respect, land, and influence. To outsiders, their success appeared impressive. But even successful warriors often carried scars. Some scars were visible: a damaged hand, a missing finger, a limp that never disappeared. Others were invisible: memories of battle, the faces of friends who never returned, moments that replayed in their minds for years. The medieval world had no understanding of psychological trauma as we know it today. People rarely spoke openly about such experiences, yet the emotional impact of war was very real. Veterans carried those burdens quietly. As time passed, many former squires became the older warriors training the next generation. They taught boys how to ride, how to fight, how to survive. And perhaps most importantly, they understood dangers that young recruits could not yet imagine. The cycle continued. New boys arrived at castles. New pages became squires. New squires followed armies into war. Generation after generation, the same pattern repeated itself. Looking back today, it is easy to focus on kings, battles, and famous knights. But the medieval world was filled with ordinary young people whose stories were never written down. Boys who left home before they were fully grown. Boys who carried weapons before they understood the consequences. Boys who faced challenges far beyond their years. Some returned, some did not. Yet together they formed an important part of medieval history. And perhaps that is the most surprising reality of all. For many boys in the Middle Ages, childhood did not end with adulthood. It ended the moment war entered their lives.